All right, so you're familiar with the term trap house. But how about this? The trap house is much more expansive than that one category of drug life. You see, the trap house with a capital T is anything that your particular vice is connected to. So somebody else's trap house is the casino. Someone else's trap house is the brothel. Somebody else's trap house is Burger King or McDonald's. The trap house is whatever you hooked on is a house for it. Even on the internet, certain channels can function like trap houses if the effects of these things are like addictions for you with no real benefits to your growth or improvements on your life. These are what are called traps. What the same thing that's happening at the trap with what they're getting, either dope or coke, right? This is what's happening on different levels and layers of the vice. This is the dualistic, polarized aspect of the vices. They're either going to bring you up or bring you down, uppers or downers. This is what all substances boil down to a degree, uppers and downers, right? And of course, in the psychedelic realm, that's more so inners and outers. But for the sake of just being standard with the idea of the trap house, you notice how it's called the trap house, but you are being pulled in different directions from the things that are connected to the trap. So if you're taking a substance from the trap house, it's going to bring you to a different house other than your original house, right? So you're moving out of your body or out of whatever that mind state is or mood or tone or whatever vibration. You're altering it. So really, the trap house doesn't really confine you on an astral plane, but you can be caught in a whole separate trap house on higher levels and on the astral plane if you don't realize the effects of the housing. Like if you don't understand the materials that are built in that dream space, you may not know the difference between a dream and a nightmare. You may not know the difference between a good dream, a bad dream. You may not know the difference between a vision or just it being a compendium of whatever your subconscious took in, songs, movies, events, etc. To be able to decipher that from the other thing is what is determining whether or not you're in and out of a trap house. A house has floors, a house has levels, a house has windows, right? But for the most part, these things are traditionally boarded up. If it's a trap house, there's usually like a one way in, one way out, front door, back door, windows may be boarded up. A lot of trap houses are used as abandoned apartments that they use for trap houses. What was called the bando about 10 years ago or so, called bandos, abandoned spots. So you see how the abandonment and the trap goes together. So where there's some level of abandonment, there's a trap house put in place. How you like that? Your vibration, right? If you're not containing it and maintaining it yourself, there's a trap house somewhere for that particular vice or for that particular urge. There's something there. But with that comes the necessity of an abandonment. This is what Jesus was talking about when the unclean spirit leaves a person. It goes out into desolate places, into the abandoned places, seeking someone to inhabit. So the first step in a trap house is not to close you in, but to push you out. A trap house is not usually attended by long lines of insiders, but long lines of outsiders. If there are long lines of insiders associated with a particular kind of trap house and kind of vice, they would usually do it under the cover of darkness, thereby making themselves seem like outsiders to that vice that they don't want to have be made public. But all of this is traps. And just like any trap, you have this cat and mouse game, because of course with a trap, you have catchers and you have fleers. And not everything is indicative of what you would have on the drug scene, where it's the trap house that's being chased. But in a lot of other instances with like gambling addiction, There has to be sights and sounds attached to the house. To the casino, there has to be lights and music and no clocks and super duper dark limo tinted windows. You have to be completely cut off from the outside world, really like a trap of amusements nonetheless. But when people are suffering from gambling addictions, the casino does become a trap house for them. You see people parking RVs out in the parking lot, people camping out. People might be blowing their kids' college savings. This turns into a trap house for them. And just because that addiction isn't a physical substance doesn't mean that there isn't a trap house attached to it. Is whatever is pushing you out of balance that you may find yourself attached to. There's a housing around that, an organization around that, some building, some infrastructure around that. So how do you get out of all traps or the idea of a trap? You have to start looking at the benefits of everything you do. Start weighing it out. This is why they say, as far as marijuana, recreational and medicinal are the two legalized purposes for it. Not just medicinal for those who need it on a medical level, but also for the purposes of recreation. Because substances in and of themselves, they pertain to recreation. Even if you're not taking any substances, if you're in the process, in the act of recreation, if you're playing a sport, after so much physical exertion, you're going to produce what is called a runner's high. And this is going to release dopamine in the bloodstream. I believe serotonin, endorphins. From what I understand, my chemistry is rough right now, but those kind of chemicals that really build your body up, make you stronger, faster. These things actually occur in the body naturally. And a lot of this will come from the adrenal glands, the kidneys. If you're playing a sport and it's coming down to the final seconds and the game is tied and you have the ball, or you have to stop the person with the ball, oh, best believe there's some superhuman stuff going on with you based on your biochemistry. You yourself, you're functioning like a trap house. And the product that you're pushing in that particular instance is the joy produced from winning the game, from being the hero. You're going to be the hero of that game. You know, people may never forget that. It might be years later and people may go all the way back to that year in school where you won that game at the last second of the game. And this will be a drug that continues to sell itself for life. So again, this is Super T Sigma of Sigma Program, and I thank you for your time and attention. You already know reaching is teaching. If it takes 1 million videos to reach 1 million views, so be it. But in the meantime and in between time, know yourself for yourself and continue to vibrate high. Peace.